Hey, what's up, y'all? We are back again with another special request, this time from emaxmagnux. Emax is not even an FVD user, but he wanted to see a breakdown of shock, the non-inverting loop on that. So I'm showing it to you from this angle because this is about where it looks the best. As usual, I thought this was going to be really easy. When I took a look at it, I was like, oh, it's just basically a non-inverting loop. But then I started to realize the closer I looked at it that the loop itself, the shape of it is a little bit odd. So this looks okay is what I'll say. It's very circular, the shape on that coaster, and this one is somewhat circular. And then I did notice that the shock does sort of flare out a little bit on the side right here. So it was very difficult to achieve this overall shape. And one of the things more seasoned FVD users might notice right off the bat is right here. If we go up here, you see that the yellow line right here, it's probably very faint, indicates the heart line. So the only way that I could find to really get this circular shape was to decrease the heart line quite a bit. Now what that means is if you import this into NoLimits, of course, when I look at it in FVD, and let's just go ahead and open up the graph, what that means is if I look at it in FVD, it shows no lats over here. But I'm fairly certain that if you open this up in NoLimits, that there will indeed be lats. Now, I've not ridden this coaster, so I'm not 100% certain that whether there are lats on this or not. And I did actually incorporate just a tiny bit of lats right here. What I did do, though, to sort of counteract that is to try to make this turn as slow as possible. So going into this part right here is about 2 seconds, and coming out of it is about 2.8 seconds. And you'll see if we go up to the top that you're only going about 15 miles an hour up here. So it's not too bad. The roll is pretty slow, so I think that's acceptable. I did go ahead, let me just roll back a little bit more. I did go ahead and try to do pretty much the first part of the ride just because when I do these recreations now, I'm really trying to match the speed and height and so forth as much as possible. So what I did was, from my research on RCDB, I discovered that shock goes 59 miles per hour and it stands, I can't remember, let's get up there and look. So I did a launch to 59 miles an hour and it stands 113 feet according to what I have here. I thought it was 114, but I did go ahead and mimic that, and I also mimic the overall shape of that hill, which is really bizarre. I did this with forces. I did it straight, a straight section right here, and the rest of it was with forces, but it kind of has that sort of old school circle and straight line look to it, which is what shock has. So I was really trying to mimic that as much as possible. I was able to do it with forces. So it rides pretty well, I would have to say, if I'm looking at it in FVD. When I compared footage to the actual ride, it seemed to be fairly accurate, I have to say. I also did a comparison on Google Earth from the top just to make sure the footprint was roughly the same, and it was. So I mean, this thing is not perfect. I'm definitely saying that. If anyone has ridden it and knows whether or not it has lats, I'd be really interested to hear that. You can see here that this section is much more circular than this section, so I could probably adjust that a little bit more. But if we take a look at the graph, you can see one of the things I had to do here was start to bring the forces down. Now, I was only up to about 3.1 going into the loop, and I brought it down just a little bit further. Now then, after first I tried a quintic double bump right here. What I noticed was it didn't give enough flat at the top because the quintic double bump goes from here to here in a straight line. It didn't give quite enough of a flat section up here. So what I did was turn this into 2 quartic functions with just a little bit more of a pause. And then I had originally used a quartic function here, but what I eventually discovered was I was fooling around with the center and the tension so much that it was stretching out to be this long sort of straight section in the middle. So eventually I broke that up into 2 different functions, 2 cubic functions, and then 1 quartic function with just a small bump in it to take it up to maybe about 1G. So if we ride through this one more time, You can take a look at it and just look at the various forces. I mean, it looks fairly realistic, I have to say. I'm not 100% sold on this, though. But if we go up here, you see, once we get up here, it just goes up to about 0.7 vertical. And again, I have not ridden this ride. I don't know what the forces are on it, and that does make recreating it just a little bit difficult. But from the angles and so forth, for example, right here in the footage, it is faced pretty much directly towards the first drop, and it does go completely flat, so I made sure that happened as much as possible as you can. You can see it's down to about 0.217, which is fine in FVD. So it completely flattens out, and then it turns and drops again, and it's fairly smooth turn, so there shouldn't be too much lats there. So Emax, I'm not certain if this is totally what you were looking for. I think it does a pretty good job of representing what goes on in that particular element, but I would, and this is definitely a case here where if someone knows what the forces are like, or if they have suggestions for how I can improve the shape of this overall, I'd be glad to hear it, because I don't want to say this is a failure. I think I got pretty good. I think I could probably spend a few more hours working on it to get it absolutely perfect, but I think overall it's pretty decent. So let me know what you think. Otherwise, that's going to take care of this episode, so I will talk to you next time. Take care and enjoy the ride.